Alright, hear me out. What if we played Hammer Time, but instead of mono white, it was Simic? Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and our donation deck list today actually comes from All Trades Media LLC, and this video is explicitly sponsored by them. If you want to upgrade your tokens, check out their original print tokens on Etsy. Honestly, they look really cool. I own a bunch of them myself. They are designed in the style of Magic's original playtest cards and bring the retro minimalism to a modern application. If you find yourself often needing a bunch of tokens, they have a build-a-pack available, which lets you pick and choose up to 20 tokens at about $1 each, while supplies last, of course. All of their links can be found in the description in their link tree, and don't forget to use the code ThrabenU for 25% off orders over $20 or more. So this is the deck that we're going to be playing today, and it's pretty interesting. This is a very different take on Hammer Time than what you might be used to seeing in Modern or even in Legacy. Note that the deck list was originally submitted with 58 cards, so I've made a few changes here and there to kind of round out the deck. In case you are not familiar with the general concept of what Hammer Time is hoping to do, it is hoping to put Colossus Hammer on a creature and kill you in 1 to 2 hits. And sometimes you can even put 2 Colossus Hammers, Colossi Hammers, onto a creature, and then you can just get things done in one combat step. So that we don't have to rely only on Colossus Hammer, and this is the whole reason that we are going into green, is we also have Belt of Giant Strength. Equipped creature has base power and toughness 10/10, with an equip cost of 10, but it costs X less to activate, where X is the power of the creature that it targets. So if you, for example, have a giant Urza Saga token because you control a bunch of artifacts, you could equip Belt of Giant Strength for free or relatively close to it. Now, while you might be used to things like Pure Still Paladin being the way that you are going to attach things, we have 2 alternative ways here. Armory Automaton, which when enters or attacks, you may attach any number of target equipment to it, and Grip of Phyresis. You gain control of target equipment. We're going to take our own equipment, and then create a 0/0 black Phyrexian Germ token and attach that equipment to it. So both of these are 3 mana ways to go and get one of these 2 things equipped. Where this deck had some missing slots, I slotted in 3 Tamiyo Inquisitive Student just as a generic source of card advantage. That was just also a creature that I could ultimately maybe equip a hammer to under certain circumstances if things get a little weird. But the game would have to go very long for that to happen here, I think. Now, notably, we are trying to be a Brainstorm Ponder deck, but if you are trying to be a Brainstorm Ponder deck that is running Urza Saga and Ancient Tomb, that's a little rough in terms of the raw number of fetch lands that you get in order to support those cards. So we might actually end up finding out that Brainstorm and Ponder don't actually end up feeling that good in this deck list. We've got 4 fetch lands, and I have 5 fetchables in this deck. I could maybe adjust these numbers a little bit, but if we are trying to play things like Lotus Petal and Mox Opal, our percentage of mana in this deck is already very high. We are sitting at about 50%, which is where you tend to be for a stompy deck list, which is kind of where we're at with this card. We are running Sink into Stupor specifically so we can have some extra blue cards for Force of Will. Since this deck is built around a little bit of a colorless core, we won't always be able to have the blue cards that we need for Force of Will. So ultimately, we'll see how this ends up feeling. As far as the sideboard goes, there was a Force of Negation in the main deck that I turned into a Tamiyo. Force of Negation doesn't protect our own stuff, which is, I think, what we want. And the sideboard originally had a bunch of copies of Veil of Summer, but we don't really have ways to remove creatures in this deck as a Simic-based deck, and I figured a couple copies of Dismember to get rid of early opposing creatures was probably a good idea. While being an artifact deck, we are rocking a playset of Null Rods. That is a very, very targeted statement at at what we thought was good while building this deck list. Now, notably, we're shutting off some potential mana, but if we are going to cheat the equip cost of this by using Grip of Phyresis or just attacking with Armory Automaton, it doesn't actually matter that much that we're null rotting. So is it relevant? Yes. Is it that relevant? Probably not. So let's see how All Trades Media's Simic Grip Brew works out. Folks, if you need any cards for this to play in your local FNM or whatever, please consider checking out my sponsor, toamagic.com. Promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order, and you always get free shipping if you place your order online. All right, let's go play some jank. All right. Opening hand does not have a mana source, even though we have multiple ways to combo. Oh, shit. Okay, so Ancient Tomb, Hammer, Opal, Shadow Spear, turn 2 Automaton, turn 3 Goldfish. I mean, yep. Wait, I have to give something up. I mulliganed. Give up Shadow Spear. Keep the Mox Opal to play around days. All right, it is Hammer time. First one's in, second one's in. Mox Opal. I was about to say, in case my opponent plays Vexing Bobble. That's not gonna happen anymore. Underground Sea, don't Thoughtseize me. Okay, cool, that's fine. I would like my 22/22 creature, please. Don't force of will me. Alright. I mean, here we go. Fuck yeah. I will equip 2 hammers. League is a success already. I've made a 22/22 creature on turn 2. That's fucking legacy, folks. Fatal Push could happen. Fatal Push does not happen. Fatal Push happens and my opponent does not have Revolt, so they don't kill my creature. Well, Peter Pan, you've learned a lesson today. The lesson is that 22 combat damage to the face hurts. Against a fair deck, and I'm going to assume fair deck for right now. Against some fair blue-black deck, I don't really know that I am going to sideboard. I think I am just going to submit things as is, and then as we learn how much we care about the small creatures versus how much we care about the graveyard, I can make some adjustments. Okay, we have a good Urza's Saga hand here. And if our opponent has Wasteland for Urza's Saga, we just replace it with another one. We can end up getting a Colossus Hammer off of Urza's Saga later on, and then equipping it with Grip of Phyresis or Armory Automaton. We have a lot of Armory Automaton, apparently. Alright, second land drop. Nethergoyf is fine. So our Saga ticks up, so we can start making some artifacts. Now, notably, there are some timelines where I just end up getting Shadow Spear. And I use Shadow Spear to offset Ancient Tomb life loss. We'll see how the next turn cycle or so ends up going. But the 3 mana cards are a little bit awkward right now, because if I use 2 mana on my own turn to activate this, I will only have 2 mana, which is not the 3 that I need to cast something else. So I will take this hit. 18. I'm going to deal a decent amount of damage to myself over the next 2 turns. We are getting a response. Might be a... no, not a lightning bolt. Not a fatal push a token now. That's perfectly reasonable. That's actually quite relevant because I wanted Metalcraft for Mox Opal so that I could brainstorm prior to my shuffle that I am guaranteed to get. Alright, so let's make a friend. I think now that I have a Colossus Hammer, I just don't... Ooh, I'm going to get stifled here. I'm going to get dismembered. Solid tempo play. I could Lotus Petal and play an Automaton, and then Colossus Hammer it from hand. I could get Lava Spur Boots to threaten haste, then play out a Colossus Hammer. This turn's really tough. I think it's also just fair to do this. Like, do this, drop Urza's Saga, play a Colossus Hammer to turn on Metalcraft. Days. That's fine. Like, we got Shadow Spear because we're just trying not to die to this creature. But my opponent has cut me off of this Brainstorm twice by denying me Metalcraft for Mox Opal. Oh, jeez. I think we're dead. I wonder if opponent is going to Wasteland Urza Saga or Ancient Tomb. I think that is a real choice. It's probably going to be Urza's Saga, because Urza's Saga threatens to tutor up a hammer that turns on 3 of the cards in my hand. But if I'm going to be left with 1 or more Armory Automatons, I could see an argument for taking out the Ancient Tomb and trying to just let Urza's Saga expire naturally. They're going to take out my Brainstorm, and I do lose Urza's Saga. So I take 3 damage. Alright, Lotus Petal means that I'm playing stuff around Days. Kind of in multiple different ways, I guess. I maybe should not have fetched. I should have just played Lotus Petal and then leave the fetch available so that I can turn it into a Surveil land. If I don't need to pay for Days. Fuck, I think my opponent has Force of Will beyond this. So I will equip my Shadow Spear. I have a 3/3 lifelinker Trampler. My opponent can just hold back the Nethergoyf. Okay, they are just passing the turn very quickly. I mean, that's not bad. This takes a little while, but it is a hammer. I will put a second one of these in play, mostly just to grow my artifact count, honestly. We don't need to move the equipment, and the attack into Nethergoyf does not make sense as is. We got a long pause. The long pause is probably good for me. Alright, we're just chilling. That means that Urza Saga gets to keep doing Urza Saga things. Sink into Stupor is not crazy to cast as a spell. I will go ahead and hold that up while passing the turn. Okay, no, opponent just had to stop attacking because I put a 3/3 lifelinker into play, so their attack didn't make sense anymore, and then I finally exhausted them on resources. The initial, like, Fatal Push, Dismember, Daze, second Wasteland, or I guess first Wasteland string had me really, really worried. And then my opponent just bottomed out. I'm not sure exactly what's in their hand as of right now. They might have just flooded out on lands. They might have like Thought Seizes that they just didn't really feel like were worth casting. If I just have like the Grip that is not particularly powerful, counterspells they can't really cast as of right now. They punted game 1. But my deck did its thing in game 2 for sure. I mean, not that it didn't in game 1. 22 power on turn 2 is, like, okay, I guess. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists. And they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out. Okay, I am not excited by this opening hand. We don't have Ancient Tomb to go with Urza Saga to start powering stuff out quickly. I don't have a fetch land for this Brainstorm, and beyond that, like, this is 6 mana sources. I don't think I want to keep that on my 7. My 6 is not looking good either. I don't think this has a plan to win reasonably. I'll go to 5. The 5 needs mana, but is pretty close to working. I'm always throwing back 1 Belt of Giant Strength, and then it's trickier. I almost want to throw back Ponder and hope to find either a land or an artifact in 2 draws, so that I just curve into turn 3 20 power creature. I'm going to do that. I think on 5 I need to run a little hot, and I think making it so that if I do the thing, it's Basic Plains Lotus Petal. Spirit Guide. Is this a red-white initiative deck? Yeah, something of that general nature. So this game could get a little weird. That's our 1 spell per turn. I have a Wastelandable Misty Rainforest if my opponent is just playing a white stompy deck. I'm going to take 2 here. I'm most scared if my opponent's next land drop is Ancient Tomb, and they just follow this up with another banger. Okay, we do have confirmation that my opponent is on red-white. Chalice on 0. that is their one spell for this turn. I pick up a Shadow Spear. I am going to get my one basic. I'm going to put Colossus Hammer into play. And unfortunately, that's my turn. I only have 2 artifacts as of right now. Opponent has their 3rd land drop, and this is where a secondary hate bear of some kind is likely to come down. Oh no, it's just Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. That's not too bad. That does not kill me immediately. Okay, Ancient Tomb is quite good. So now I can go ahead and turn on Metalcraft, so this is on for the future. So next turn, I can make an 11/11 trample lifelink creature. Without flying, of course. Broadside scary. My opponent gets a treasure token. I get hit for 6. My opponent can throw a treasure token for 2. They throw the chalice instead. Sure. We'll see if I die. I think I die. But we'll give our opponent a chance to misclick or whatever. So my opponent makes their treasure token. Ooh, I don't get to equip more than one of these, do I? The automaton that gets everything. Okay. My opponent can now just throw a Reflection of Kiki-Jiki and kill me. I'll block. I'll take 4. I'm at 1. I'm dead to broadside. Yep. Very, very close. This is where those dismembers are quite actively good. Brazen Borrower is maybe playable as well. I think I'm just trimming some cantrips. My opponent might be putting Chalice on 1 rather than Chalice on 0. This is just an Urza Saga beatdown hand that can dismember an initial creature that's played out. That's fine. So Saga, Opal, and I can get rid of this stop. Basic Plains, Lotus Petal, Spirit Guide, Broadside. They know to Broadside. That's not the most threatening thing out of this deck, but I'm going to deal a lot of damage to myself over the course of this game with Ancient Tomb. I think this is fine. Cavern on human, maybe working towards Magus of the Moon. I am absolutely making one of these. It's slightly more interesting from there for whether or not I go for a combo. I get Swordsed. Sure. I guess I don't have Metalcraft for blue now. Not immediately, anyway. So I will make my Construct token. I will have Metalcraft once I put this in play. So I think I take the hammer. Mox Opal is now on. I think while Pyroblast is not up, I do the thing. I can do it again if I need to. City of Traders. Opponent is passing the turn. That is a nice follow-up here. I think I see if I hit my opponent for 13 before I do anything else. Yeah. Oh, I just do hit them for 13. That's awfully cool. I don't need to play this yet. I'm playing one of these 2. Let's drop a Tameo. I'm unsure if that is better than just holding up Grip. Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Yeah, you've got it. My opponent gets planes and passes the turn. So this needs to be blocked. Tameo is going to make a clue, which scales up this construct token. I also now have Force of Will protecting this. This is great. So send in, trigger. This is now a 4/4. Solitude. No. Force of Will. Pitch Ponder. I don't know that it matters much which one I pitch. My opponent blocks the 10/10. I now take the initiative. I get Basic Island. I will play this. And I think just pass holding up, cracking a clue, as well as Grip of Phyresis. Alright, we're doing something. A Solitude. Sure. So my opponent made the mistake of casting this now. So they should have done this once I was in combat. I don't know that any reasonable human being would know to play around this card unless you've already seen it. But they have. Okay, yeah, no, they figured it out. But they have already seen it. Not to mention just like forging up a Tameo alone just makes for a really bad turn. They have to chump block the construct token to stay alive. They go to 1, and then I just have trap following this up. The dismembers that I added to the deck seem really, really important for this matchup, both in clearing Archon and stopping an initial initiative creature from just overpowering me. I think this one's going to play out similarly to the last one, where I dismember an initial creature that my opponent plays off of Urza Saga, and then just try to ride Ancient Tomb Urza Saga to victory from there. I can get massively slowed down by something like an Archon, so hopefully that doesn't happen. Mox Diamond, Ancient Tomb. It's just broadside. Yeah, that's totally fine. I will dismember that and move on with my life. 18. Urza's Saga, Lotus Petal, and pass. I will dismember this now. It's a little awkward if a post-combat Archon comes down and makes my Urza Saga considerably worse. Yep, I accept. That's not bad. Is it Ancient Tomb? Yeah, I think it's Ancient Tomb. I'm going to take 2 here. All right. Combo time? Combo time. Hammer. 3 mana. Automaton. Equip the Colossus Hammer. This is a 12/12. Do a tapped Misty Rainforest. And pass. The things that answer this, generally speaking, are going to give me 12 life. Opponent's willing to continue to attack in. If I hit them for 12, there's not too much else they can do from there. Yeah? Are you chump blocking, or are you going to try to race? You are chump blocking. Okay. I believe that it is fine to do this. Doesn't change, like, broadside as a top deck, for example. Wait, if they throw Archon, it does, right? 4+5? No. So Island, I will ponder. No. Shuffle. Yes, I've got Force of Will. Not really in the market to be able to hardcast that. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't have a second basic. I guess I could play Mox Opal next turn and then Force of Will on my opponent's turn. Okay, that's the plan. Am I taking 2 or... Alright, opponent is on the defensive. This is very good for us. But I just don't need to cast this here, because it doesn't change anything. I just want to be able to hardcast Force of Will. Yeah, so I will just let my opponent chump block. So send this in. So there's the chump block. I can cast Mox Opal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can cast Belt of Giant Strength. It doesn't seem necessary to do so. I might just end up taking extra damage that I don't need to take. It will mean that I gain more life, though, if my opponent gets an out to it. Okay. So I will just equip that for free, since I have a huge duder. Heyo! We did the thing. Alrighty, so we have 3 starting mana. My mana is awkward. I can't really cast these Belts of Giant Strength. This hand feels slow. I think I mulligan this one. I think I have stronger hands. This is good in some capacity. I just have to figure out how I'm doing it. I think I'm going to throw back, sink into Stupor. Ancient Tomb, Grim Monolith. This is why we have a pile of Null Rods in the sideboard, just FYI. This deck is still quite good. God damn it. The Mox Opals and the Lotus Petals were kind of important to this hand. Just pluses with Karn. It is fine to continue playing the match for right now. I don't think Misty Rainforest gives my opponent any meaningful information. But I guess the way that I win this from here is playing Belt of Giant Strength and then doing an end of my opponent's turn Grip of Phyresis to make a creature that ambushes Karn. Alright. Bob went into the tank for a little while and is tutoring with Karn. Going for Mystic Forge. Now we'll see an untapping of Grim Monolith to have the mana to cast that. And an Urza's Tower. Sure. Candelabra as well. This can be used to untap lands that produce multiple mana in a meaningful way. I think I'm going to surveil land. Get Hedge Maze. Not want this additional mana. Yeah. Fetch. Drop. Belt. Pass. Bob is at 16. I wonder if there's a timeline where I can sneak this out. Seems unlikely. But I think there's a non-zero chance. There is just the problem that my opponent might go for Mystic Forge, or not Mystic Forge, Mycosynth Lattice this turn, and I don't really beat that. Alright, so there is the Lattice. Untap Ancient Tomb, and then this is 6 mana, more than enough mana. So there is the Lattice, and at this point I don't beat that. My opponent playing Karn specifically on turn 1 so that I did not get my acceleration was the point where this game was lost. So Null Rod's in, Pithing Needle in, Force of Negation probably in, probably get rid of Shadow Spear. Lava Spur Boots might still be important. I would prefer not to cut too many blue cards. I am probably cutting some number of blue cards though. My Force of Wills and Force of Negations really matter. That might mean that I am going down a little harder on some of these. Do something like this and this. I could also just cut the Belt of Giant Strength and keep a couple more blue cards. I think that's reasonable. I mean, I'm keeping this Cameo Null Rod combo. I think I just ponder on turn 1 anyway, though. Like, I think I very clearly want to find a Force of Will. Yeah, beautiful. Yaw, yaw, yaw. No shuffle. Like, I just want to make it to this Null Rod. That's fine. That's fine. Again, not a problem. I Force of Will that. Pitching the Tameo. And I'll do this while dropping a Null Rod to stop this. Probably just start my Urza Saga ticking up immediately while doing this. Planar Nexus. So now I make an Urza Saga token if my opponent does something threatening. Well, that's occurring. Can't bounce my own thing with this. Grab a Hedge Maze. So next turn, use these 2 mana to make a construct. I can actually use this land to drop an Automaton immediately. I think I'm fine keeping that. Untap. My opponent is probably going to play some 4-drop that I have to counter with Sink into Stupor. It is not the end of the world to lose out on 1 Urza Saga token if I am going to create something that will basically kill Bob in 1 hit. New Monolith is fine, and we're chilling. There could be something like a Kozilek's Command that happens. Alright, so yeah. I could Pithing Needle Manifold Key here. I think I like the idea of getting Colossus Hammer still. I'm not going to have Sink into Stupor available this turn. Can do it a little bit later, though. We're going to play this pre-combat just to grow this Construct token more and get this equipped. Dumped an attack in for 4. And notably here, the power level difference between equipping Colossus Hammer to anything and equipping it to a creature that is going to attack next turn is pretty big, right? Because this is the difference between dead right now and having another turn to find some Ensnaring Bridge or other bullshit like that to keep the game going. Is a Kozilek's Command. Opponent just going for blockers here. I'm unsure whether Pile of Blockers is better than just exiling either a Construct token or an Automaton. I don't know the rest of the hand. Alright, opponent just takes it. So it might be they needed the mana, not the blockers. Might have evaluated that wrong. Sure. Is the One Ring. That'll buy another turn. Drawing a card. Ancient Tomb does not deal damage now. And this is where that One Ring cycle of tapping, untapping bullshit starts to happen. I Sink into Stupor's not bad, but it's not great either. Oh, great. So now it's 3 more draws with the One Ring. That's pretty bad. That's plus 3 mana. A Candelabra, which can now untap Urza Saga and or Ancient Tomb for additional mana. Mishra's Research Desk. Sure. Oh no, Glaring Fleshraker. Great. So bouncing the One Ring is not great because it gives my opponent another turn worth of fog. I might be able to Sink into Stupor a spell while my opponent is bottlenecked on mana. Unsure. Somewhat unlikely. I'm unsure whether or not I should play out this Tameo. I don't think I bounce anything that's on my opponent's board right now. They are at 7. One Ring is going to do very gross things here. The way that I win is Bob just kind of lazily tapping out for 1 card that I get to counter in a meaningful way. Like just tapping all of his mana for, say, a Kozilek's Command, and I just bounce that to hand and just steal a win. Karn is not great. I think I just have to let it happen. Don't think that spell is scary enough to respond to. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's scary, but there are worse things that could be coming. Yeah, like that. The Grim Monolith gets untapped. Then I'm going to counter Paradox Engine. Well, okay, it's more of an air quotes counter. My opponent casts that. I will return it back to their hand. Now, if Bob sacrifices a spawn to untap 2 copies of Urza's Tower, he can just cast it again, which is what's happening. And after another spell has been cast after Paradox Engine, I believe that I will just concede the game. It is probably trivial to win after untapping that much mana and having access to multiple One Ring draws. I'm not going to spend the other 2 minutes here making him play that out. GG's. I'm looking at a weird opening hand here. It's like an okay Urza Saga hand that has to blow some Lotus Petals to make constructs, assuming that I want to make constructs. I think this is a weird keep. I think this hand threatens to do something powerful enough that I just keep it despite some of the awkwardness, assuming that it gets better in some capacity. Yeah. We're going to do a weird thing here. I think we brainstorm off a Lotus Petal to just plan out this game. Now I'm just going to play turn 2 Urza's Saga. Let's get rid of Shadow Spear and some blue card. I will play a Surveil land. Well, it'll be a Surveil land in a minute. And then we're going to play a fair Urza Saga game for a few turns and then pivot into combo. Ooh. Wonder if opponent is like playing Stifle Knot or something. Edge Maze. Grip. I don't think I need Grip. So I will play my own Urza Saga here. I think with this turn I play an Automaton. I think I just put that into play preemptively. I think that is worth my Lotus Petal. So this means that my Urza Saga is just horrifyingly strong. I can make 2 constructs off of it while also turning this into a 12 power creature. Basic Forest. Is it Nadu instead? Unable to Scream. Lose all ability and is a 2/2. I can just say okay, or I can Force of Will this and keep this in play. I don't know yet whether or not I am facing down Shuko into Nadu immediately. Unable to Scream is a weird thing to see. Probably means my opponent doesn't have another color. Like, if you have another color, you can just play Swords to Plowshares. Oseiju. Alright. Well, hopefully I just ponder into a piece of equipment and hit my... Well, there's a piece of equipment. That is technically what I was looking for. There's 7 hits. There's 1. Bam, bam, bam. No shuffle. Fetch. Drop. Belt of Giant Strength. So I'll attack. When I attack, I will pick up my belt and hit my opponent for 12. Or sorry, this is setting base power and toughness. It's not a plus X, excuse me. Hit them for 10. Now next turn I can just trample through an Urza Saga Construct token for a ton of damage. Probably not for lethal because my opponent will pick up another artifact. Excuse me. It is Shuko. My opponent is trying not to be a Nomads in core deck and just play like Unable to Scream. What is the upside of doing this? Like, do you end up running back to basics or something weird? What's the payoff? Planar Genesis. Is that the 2 mana put a land into play thing? Yeah, okay. I'm still not sure why we're doing this. Planar Genesis. Okay. So the Shadow Spear is very actively good here. Let's cast that. That is Force of Will, pitching, and Unable to Scream. I don't get to kill my opponent this turn. That means that they are going to get some more Nadu activations. You know what? Fuck you, this is mine. I'll clip this one too. There is the Nadu chump block, and I'll pass turn. There is a new Nadu. Now my opponent can move the Shuko, so they can get 2 more Nadu activations. But my opponent doesn't have any more creatures, so they're just drawing 2 cards with Nadu rather than winning the game. Like, there must be more creatures over there for this to make sense, yeah. This is probably the point where I maybe don't win anymore. My opponent hit that other creature, And while I might be able to get through 2 cards a turn, I don't think I get through 4 cards a turn. My opponent will just jump block, because I don't have the trample that I needed from that Shadow Spear. Now, like, Urza Saga represents more creatures and more jump blocks and whatnot. Yeah. I think at this point I'm going to concede. I think my opponent has enough resources that I can see the writing on the wall. So, Pithing Needle on Shuko is kind of insane. Dismember seems good. I don't know that I really want a Null Rod. I think shutting off my own artifact mana and equipment is meaningful here. But if my opponent is not playing Nomads in Core as the other combo outlet, it does shut off the combo, but there's probably things like Bristly Bill in there that are a mid-range approach to doing it. I think I'm going to get rid of Lava Spur Boots. I'm boarding in Pithing Needle as another fetchable 1-drop. I think the Trample matters. I need to keep that in there. And then beat Tameo out. I can just play my Automaton on turn 1. And then drop Hammer on turn 2. This is fine. Yeah. I'm gonna deal a lot of damage to myself with my lands. Unable to Scream is kind of annoying. Mox Amber. Sure. I will Lotus Petal. You become blue mana. I don't need the blue mana unless this resolves, though. Like, this can enter tapped if this doesn't resolve. It does resolve. I guess this is weird, right? Because I have a floating mana. Fuck, I was supposed to use Lotus Petal to do this. Weird. Okay. So send in. Attach the hammer. Yeah, I hit for 12. Opponent surveils. Yeah, if I use Lotus Petal, I have Grip up, so that if my opponent does a sorcery speed answer to this, I just have it covered. Uro is not overly surprising here. Tropical Island and pass. Sure. Yeah. I'm just going to do this off Ancient Tomb to give myself more flexibility. Yeah. I can just attach this when I go to combat. That's fine. Yes. Grab the Surveil land. I don't really need that. And pass turn. And my opponent's end step. I will present lethal. That's fine. That's fine. That's less fine. I think before my opponent draws any more cards, I do my thing. Alright, so I have a 10/10 creature that is going to trample. My opponent gets 2 Nadu looks. There's a land drop. Dismember. That do it. Turns this into a 5/5. It'll actually be a 6/6. That'll keep my opponent alive as of right now. Humorously, the Belt of Giant Strength would get me through this board. Let's see if we find anything that changes the math on this turn. Force of Will is interesting. I don't know that it's actively good. It means that I'm drawing both of those other cards, which I don't like. I'm going to shuffle that. Get Tropical Island instead, which is probably worse. Alright. Make this an 11/11 Trampler. Okay, that was enough for my opponent to concede. Oh, I guess the Dismember causes life loss, right? I was overthinking this. The Dismember itself causes life loss, so it's not just -5, -5. Yeah, okay. I was overthinking on my end. So I know that Uro is a thing. I'm going to hit submit. This is a strong Urza Saga hand that I am going to hope ends up being fast enough to keep up with what my opponent is doing. That's fine. Finding a Dismember on turn 1 would be cool. That's not happening. Yeah. Pass. So next turn, I can Urza's Saga, which turns on Mox Opal. That's annoying. I'm just going to let it happen. Cameo transforms and pluses. There's a Surveil land to probably get through the Brainstorm stuff that was just looked at. I'll tick up. Threatening the combo finish is cool. So I am interested in doing this. And then I can Brainstorm. Well, I could just play Armory Automaton. Yeah, let's do that. This Mox Opal has been on the stack for a very, very long time. Opponent might have something like Force of Vigor that they are considering using with like timing, trying to shut off the second Mox Opal or something. So now I have 2 In theory, 2 decently sized construct tokens and an automaton that can be cracking in for a ton of damage. It is Uro. There's not very many cards in graveyard yet. That's not very threatening. Alan Gates is super annoying. Ooh, on their own Uro. That's cute. That's a big swing. Getting back a Brainstorm. That's all fine. So this is still phased out. So I'm going to make a thing. I have Force of Will for the next relevant spell that my opponent plays. I'm going to pick up the hammer. I think I am hedge mazing. That secondary Force of Will. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess that secondary Force of Will matters. I'm going to keep that. I think my opponent can keep the Tamiyo. I'll pick this up. I'm just going to hit them for 17. Yeah, Tamiyo pluses. Brainstorm's fine. I'm more worried about something like Talon Gates of Madara just getting around my double Force of Will. Do I need to Force of Will that as a blocker? So my opponent can block my 12/12 with Uro, and then they are taking 8. Yes, I will Force of Will that. Purely for the fact that it is a blocker. I don't want to drag this game on and just let my opponent Nadu combo if I wait too long to finish the game. My opponent wasn't threatening a combo finish, it would be different. Unable to Scream. This becomes a 0/2 base and loses its abilities. God damn it. So they make that phase out and have Shuko. Alright, so now I have Force of Will. So Uro has to block. This is going to be 4 power. This goes at face. Has to be blocked. I think I kill Tamiyo since Tamiyo can now -4 a relevant card. Yeah. Give me that Shuko. Alright, cool. I am unsure why the phasing and the unable to scream thing both affect the same thing. So I probably just Force of Will that. Yeah. Able to scream is fine. We win! We win! I'm at 3 wins with this deck, which I was not expecting when we registered it, but here we are. Alright, this is a very strong Urza Saga hand that is going to fall apart if something happens to this Urza Saga. Because both of these cards require Colossus Hammer to become good. So I have the Ancient Tomb to make Urza Saga happen. I can play this Lotus Petal out preemptively so we don't get caught by, I don't know, Archon of Emeria. Fuck! We're dead! We're dead! 3-2 finish. We had a good run. Ponder might save us. I think I try to Ponder when I can fetch. Let's get rid of that land. This will also just give me another draw step in case I learn that I need to sculpt my hand in some specific capacity. Sure. Feels like blue-black tempo. Another Goyf confirms that. Not really looking for another Ancient Tomb. I'm going to play Ponder prior to the fetch land. If I draw Urza's Saga, I might want to play that, and I'm still already playing around days. Yeah. Nope. Shuffle? That's not what I'm looking for. And I also don't have a second Surveil land, right? I have 1 Hedge Maze. That's unfortunate. Let's give our opponent an Ancient Tomb to Wasteland, shall we? I'm going to win or lose this game massively. Yeah, hit the Ancient Tomb. Yes! I'll take 2 damage. Can we buy a little bit of time here? I mean, shit, that is exactly what I'm looking for. I don't want this to be Force of Willed. I think I play the Automaton first. So something that I tell people a lot is that if you don't know why your opponent is playing a card, like you don't understand why the card is physically in their deck, you should probably counter it if you have the opportunity to. And this might be one of those instances. Alright, I do not successfully bait a counterspell here. Underground Sea. Bobble. I guess to take a look. I'm going to get bashed for 3, which is fine. And then my opponent plays a Delver. I am in great shape if they do not have a counterspell. I'm in very, very bad shape if they do. Ancient Tomb, not what I am looking for. I don't think I want to take 4 damage from my own lands here in the face of 2 tempo creatures to attempt to play Automaton and Belt of Giant Strength in the same turn. I think I just want to take 1. Get Trop, play the Belt. This is an incredible force of will. Fuck, yeah. Okay. I think I am going to go ahead and attack for 2. No equipment. I think this math does not go well for me. So the way that I win is Delver not flipping here. Great start for me. Anyway, Delver needs to not flip, and then I need to run hot on my next draw step. With the Delver flipping here, I take 6 or more damage this turn. So my opponent is Grixis and has Tarfire to put a Kindred type into graveyard. I get to look at my next card. I am effectively dead on my opponent's next attack step. I can technically chump block to stay alive, but as soon as I'm chump blocking and not attacking, I think the game is over for me. So, fuck, I'm so fucking close. I can play Belt of Giant Strength and hit my opponent for 10. But if I tap both Ancient Tombs, I die to Delver in the air. So I can only tap 1 Ancient Tomb, which puts me to 4, and I can chump block. Okay. I have an out I'm playing towards, but it sure doesn't fucking feel good. So Shadow Spear off the top would be a way to do it. And a whole bunch of life and stabilize. I guess it could also be a Colossus. Wait, shit. No, if I go to 1, then I can't Shadow Spear and Belt off the top. That doesn't work. I'm not sure what I'm playing towards then. My opponent thought seizing and fetching. No, that doesn't put them to 10. Oh, am I just getting bolted? Multiple tire fires, sure. Okay, dismembers seem good. I don't think my force of wills are amazing here. I think I'm going to play 1 Pithing Needle for Wasteland. I could attempt to Ghost Vacuum to make Netherglyphs worse. I don't know that Ghost Vacuum is going to keep up with what my opponent is doing. I could play a bunch of them. Like, I could play a bunch of them just over some cantrips, because my opponent might have Bowmasters. I could do something like this, just try to be a little more controlling, maybe even play Brazen Borrower. Sure. Note that we're disrespecting cantrips much more than I normally would, because my deck has, like, 4 fetch lands. This is fine. If we get, like, Force of Willed into Wasteland, this is pretty bad. That's, the first half of what I said would be pretty bad. Okay, cool. Delver is acceptable. So I'm going to ponder looking for more mana, and then probably end up dismembering a Delver. Okay, so let's change the plan a little bit. Don't watch my life total go down, it hurts. Ow, ow. The disgusting force of will if my opponent has one. They don't, which is great. Now I'll ponder. Honestly, looking for more mana, and Urza's Saga in particular would be great. I don't care if I trade for a Daze here. Okay, cool. Yeah, that is actively fine. Underground Sea. Nethergoyf for Thoughtseize, Nethergoyf. Sure. YOLO? YOLO feels okay here. Although I think I'm gonna try to high roll this and do it during combat. I'm gonna give my opponent 1 more draw towards a blue card. Red mana. Like, I am already at 13 from my own Dismember. Ooh, buddy. Yeah. So there's very high upside to eating this creature in combat. Also, like, this is a wild combat trick. I would not expect people to play around this one. Ah, damn it. Oh, that's so rough. The opponent has 1 unknown card now. Am I taking 2? Yeah, I think I'm taking 2. I think I just want to get this going. Get out of play. Then I can try to ride some Tamiyo card advantage to victory. I mean, Force of Will days. Real rough as far as my resources are concerned. Tamiyo lives through Tarfire, notably. Well, that's an awkward draw. Send this in. Now, I'll crack the clue like this. Misty Rainforest is not a real Magic the Gathering card right now, because I'm about to get hit for 3. Yeah, I think I just ran out of life. I need my opponent to not have one of those 3 counterspells. Oh, shit. The land wasn't in the graveyard, so I am dead on board. I had to hold back. If I hold back, I draw Belt of Giant Strength, which does not draw me any good. I need to last a couple more turns, which I'm not on track to do. Honestly, that was a pretty good league. So All trades media, your deck is I think a good brew. It does something objectively powerful. It has a real game plan and an okay supporting cast. I'm gonna give this a thumbs up. I will say Urza's Saga does so much heavy lifting for this deck, though. Like, Urza's Saga is a win condition and a tutor for Hammer at the same time. So when something like Wasteland happens to Urza's Saga, you really feel that badly. In terms of the deck building here, it can probably be improved. Like, the cantrips did not feel particularly strong without that many fetch lands, and there's a lot of colorless sources in this deck. Like, you can maybe build towards being more of a stompy deck list. Go the direction of like Armory for graveyard recursion and a pseudo tutor for some of this artifact nonsense. Because Armory can play Belt of Giant Strength and Colossus Hammer and Armory Automaton. Like, maybe you end up playing like Emery, Patchwork Automaton in 8 of those slots. The Tamios were okay. It feels really awkward with the null rods from the sideboard, though. Like, that's something I realized a little too late. Yeah, I might go negative the 11. I don't know. As soon as you start cutting that many blue cards, the Force of Wills become unplayable, and like Force of Will is very reasonable to protect this stuff. Pre-banning, this is the sort of deck that would have played Vexing Bauble for sure to just protect the nonsense that it is trying to do. I guess ultimately, the better question here is this better than the mono-white versions that are running around? I am unsure whether or not the answer is yes or no. The mono-white versions can play things like Esper Sentinels that can be sources of card draw, but like those run into Bowmasters, which has its own problems. So, good thought experiment. I like where this is at. This was a lot of fun to play, and we put some wins on the board. I do want to put an asterisk by one of those wins. One of our opponents definitely like just fatal pushed without revolt, and that got us a match win. So, you know, it happens. Anyway, folks, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Should you need some cards, you know where to go. Promo code ThrabenU will save you a little bit on your order. And happy holidays for those of you celebrating holidays. See ya.